So, Kiyan Michael, welcome to NTD.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. I know you have a hard story, but could you share it with our viewers and tell us what you're doing about it?
Sure. And thank you so much for caring enough to want to hear. In 2007, August 15th of 2007, we lost our 21-year-old son, Brandon Randolph Michael, in a car crash to a twice-deported illegal alien that decided that he was just going to ignore our laws and come back into our nation. And he was driving, of course, with no license, never had a license, no insurance. He hit and killed our son. And Brandon was on his way. He was on his lunch break on his way to go cash his paycheck when the crash occurred. And he caused Brandon, the hit was so hard, he caused his car to flip. And he lived for a few minutes, a little while, but the illegal got out of the car and he watched our son take his last breaths, and he didn't do anything to get him any help or to help him. And because he got out of the car, now it's forced the state to have to prove that he was behind the wheel, because he denied that he was driving or that he was behind the wheel, and nobody else was in the car with him. And so here we are, just shocked as parents at the sudden loss. You don't expect to bury your child. And we're shocked with that and having to come around to that. And as a mother, it's devastating. I was in and out of the hospital because I couldn't eat. Didn't want to drink it. You know, I was trying to drink fluids and that kind of stuff, and just the grief of it and the shock of it. And now having been told that now we have to go to a trial and go through a trial and endure a trial and look at the person that took your child's life week in and week out, and they're looking at you and still denying that they were behind the wheel. And finally, and unfortunately, in between all of that, we had to go back to the scene with our local news station in Jacksonville, Florida, and ask for witnesses to come forward that may have seen him behind the wheel.
And did any?
No one really came forward, because the people who saw it, there were people who saw it, so it was never a question of if he was at fault, if the illegal was at fault. All of the witnesses said they saw the crash. They saw him turn right into our son, plow into him. It was just putting him behind the wheel. So all the attention and focus, of course, went to our son because he was critically injured. So people weren't focused on him. But fortunately, we had one of the sheriff's officers that was on the scene that was out of the nation. He was out of the country. He didn't know we were looking for witnesses. He came forward and pointed them out in the courtroom. And he was only given 2 years and deported for the third time. So he's spending the holidays with his family. Didn't have a scratch on him. He wasn't hurt, wasn't harmed. And our son had never come home. And we have an older son and a younger daughter, and our sons work together. So on that day, they were supposed to go to lunch together. And if there's anything that I'm grateful for, is that that's the one time they did not go to lunch together. But it's been hard. It's heart-wrenching, it's heartbreaking. And what we do now is, thankfully, because of our President Trump, who cared enough to bring light to our stories and to deem us as angel parents, because nobody had heard of us. No one had even seen us. And no one knew how real this was. But thank God for our president. Now we have a voice. He's given us our voice back. And in Florida, we got a great governor, Governor DeSantis. I call him the best governor in the nation, who has given us support and has embraced our family as well. And we have spoken out, and we're very active in the House in Florida, and as well as the Senate. And we spoke out at the sanctuary bill ban,
and I hear
anti-sanctuary city ban.
You're in D.C. right now to go to the White House, right?
Yes. And I'll be at the White House tomorrow, and was invited there for the observance of Black History Month by our President and First Lady. So that's a blessing. And just happened to just stop in here with my good friend Mary Ann Mendoza. So we speak out, and we speak out to, one, change our immigration laws, because we don't want another family to be added, and unfortunately they are being added. There are many more of us, there's too many of us, and there will be more until our laws are changed. And we speak out with the sanctuary bill ban, and we're speaking out now with the E-Verify in Florida. And it is because we care, and because we have to do something. We need justice for our son. But most importantly, we know that the laws have to change. This has to stop somewhere. It's just happening too much.
Were you political at all before this happened and you realized that something needs to change?
I've always been drawn to politics. Didn't know exactly why I wanted to be a judge and all of that. But it wasn't until we were impacted ourselves that we realized how huge of a problem our immigration is. We have a huge illegal immigration problem here in our nation, and it's getting worse. But fortunately, because of the president, it is decreasing, and we do see the border slowing down. But we need that border wall up. We've got to get the wall up, and we've got to change our laws. We've got to enforce the laws that we have, and we've got to get rid of sanctuary cities.
Are you able to take some solace when you meet each other, the other angel parents and families?
Absolutely, because no one else understands the kind of pain. It's tragic to lose a child in any circumstance, but when it happens because of a very 100% preventable reason, such as borders not being enforced, that's 100% preventable. Twice he was deported and came back, defying our laws. And actually, right before he killed our son, months before he killed our son, he was stopped by the local illegal alien, was stopped by the local law enforcement, and for driving without a license, he was given a citation and released again. Wow. So there was another way that our son could still be here. So we know that these are preventable losses. We know that it should not be happening, and we must secure our borders.
I notice you don't say his name. Is that on purpose?
Yes, that's on purpose, because I'm not giving him any kind of attention. He deserves no focus. I don't have hatred in my heart for anyone. This isn't a race issue. As you know, you're looking at us, looking at at me. It's not about race. It's not, because we know that we have people who are coming from over 53 different nations. So we have people of every skin color, of every skin type, of every creed type and tribe type. So this isn't about race, but it is about the rule of law. We do have laws, and we are a nation of laws. And we have to, as a nation, as a patriot, we have to stand up for what's right and try to prevent other people from going through this, other parents and other siblings like our children.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how are they doing?
It's one day at a time. We're believers as a family. We are a family that prays, and that's what gets us through. That's what helps us to get through. And bonding with other angel families, as you were saying. It wasn't until I came along and met Marianne and the angel families. I didn't even know it was so many out there. And when I met them and just hugged them, because we understand it is a different type of loss, because you feel like the entire nation is against you. When you have lawmakers that are not enforcing the laws, that are ignoring the laws, or saying it's fabricated, or that it's not a real problem, it's not an emergency at the border. When you have lawmakers saying that, and they're fighting against us to bring in more people who should not come in illegally, because we have a legal process, and that should be honored. When you have that happening, and you know that you lost your child because of this, and you meet other families, we understand one another's pain, and to embrace one another, it does bring us some type of healing, and we hurt for one another. We cry hearing one another's stories, because it is tragic. It is, we just can't make light of it.
Right.
But it is a tragedy that was preventable.
And, you hope that people can, people who fortunately haven't suffered as you have can at least understand, identify emotionally, with what you're going through.
yes.
The story the other day about the 92-year-old great-grandmother who was raped and brutally murdered, I was just appalling from so many angles. And yeah, it's a tough story. So how big is the network, or the group that you've?
It's too big. We had a family, as the family that was featured by the president at the State of the Union, for instance. We had another family in Florida a few months ago that you were just talking about to join us. I mean, and unfortunately, it's going to continue to grow. And this is why we do what we do and why we're speaking out. We know that our president's doing everything he can.
It really was invisible until I'd never heard of it. We were just talking before. I'd never heard of the term, angel mom or angel parent. But I guess President Trump coined that.
Yes, he did. He coined that. And once he coins you, it sticks.
Yeah. Definitely effective at that.
We're blessed and we're thankful so much for President Trump, because no one even heard our stories. We were ignored. We couldn't tell our stories. Even now, we have to have stations like you all and networks like you all to get our story out, because you will not see us on mainstream media. They don't want our stories to get out because it's true. It's the reality of what happens when your borders are wide open. It's what happens when our laws are not followed. It's what happens when we have the left legislators who fight for people who are non-citizens. This is what happens. We're the end result of lawlessness. Because as in our son's case, and you will find this over and over and over and over if you talk to other angel families, we do not get justice. Some of the families have never, their child's killer has never spent a day, never been caught. And then if we are in court, very often they get leniency. But our child, when they talk about separation at the border, we're permanently separated. And we didn't make that choice. We would have never made that choice. And this is what permanent separation looks like. And we don't want that to just keep happening and happening over and over. It's needless.
And it's strange. There seems to be sort of two standards of justice for people born here and people who came through illegally somehow.
And right now, if you're not a citizen, it seems like you have more rights.
Right.
Because even the person that killed our son was working somewhere. And when I asked what company was he working for, we were told they couldn't tell us that. Why not? And when you're a parent and you experience such a devastation, you want to know every detail. You want to know everything that happened. You want to know what avenue of justice do I have. And until our president, there was just no hope. And that's why we stand, as a family, we stand behind him. And we defend what decisions he makes concerning the borders, because we know the real dangers. We know that this is reality. We know that this is real, and there's no coming back from this. When this happens, there's no way, our child will never come back. So there's nothing in this for us as angel parents to gain, except the hope of knowing, maybe, and begging and pleading with the media and with everyday Americans to pay attention to what's going on and get involved. Have a voice, let your voice be heard. Get involved when you have E-Verify, bills like E-Verify, and you have anti-sanctuary city bills. Show up and get involved and say, this is how I feel about that. So there is no win for us, except we know if our child life, if their death, even in life, may prevent one other parent from going through this, and it's worth it to keep speaking, as painful as it is, because we relive it over and over and over again.
Every time you have to tell the story.
Every time we have to tell our son's story. And our son was vibrant. He loved animals, wanted to be a veterinarian. He was engaged to be married. And we thought we would be planning his wedding, and we ended up planning his funeral. And he'll never know his nephew. He'll never know our grandson. And it's not right. There's no way that anybody can look at us. And this is why they won't face us, the Democrats who fight against us. They won't look at us. How can they look at us and say that this isn't reality, this isn't happening? How can they look at us and say that we don't deserve justice, but other people who are non-citizens do? That won't go over with us.
Well, thank you for coming and sharing your story, and I wish you the best of luck.
And thank you so much for hearing our story. And we're blessed. Thank you.